Okay, so welcome to session 2 for JDBC, where now we are going to be building a dynamic application. Last time we were using static queries and hard-coded information. By this time, we are going to be capturing information dynamically or from the user. So in the previous session we looked at how for example we connect the Java application to the database. That's basically MySQL database, and we're going to continue using MySQL database. So we said that the first thing is to register your driver. I demonstrated how you create that, how you make sure you first of all you import the driver here. Okay, so we looked at that. If you don't know, please go to the last session. After importing it, you just register the driver using the phoname method on the class, which is a global class. And then here, once you've registered the driver, you create the URL that connects to the database. Of course, we looked at 3 overloaded methods. The first one was get connection. Get connection that only takes in the URL. Another one was get connection, which takes in 2 parameters. The first one, which is the URL, and then the next, which is the properties object, which we are using in this example. Because you see, get connection takes in the URL, this one that you form here, and then the properties object, which the properties object has got the user and the username and the password for the database. Then after you create the get connection, will help you to create the connection object and use the connection object in the subsequent query executions. I put an objective in the group how we create the statement object, and some of you are using a wrong syntax. You said I put the first one was statement, then the statement object, then I said the new statement, and then you took that, which was wrong. You create the statement object using the connection object. So statement, then statement object, then connection dot create statement, not new statement. Using the constructor, no. There is a method. We said there is a method called create statement of the connection object, which you use to create the statement object. And of course, the commented out code, we also looked at how we create a database dynamically. Of course, here I commented out because we created the database. We saw we can create a table. We also saw how we can insert information, which was static in this case. And then we also saw how to pull the data from the database, because if I run this, for example, okay, here is my console. I've closed it. Okay, let me see if I can restore it. Okay, so you can see after running our program, you're able to see the students that we have in our database, and this is the student Simon Dung. And if you go to our DB, see that we only have Simon Dung. So next we are inserting this information manually. For example, if you look at the insert Simon Dung, we had coded these values, but we want to make sure that first name, last name, address, and age come from from the user, or the user is able to enter that information. So what I will do is I'll first comment out this code, which is for fetching. I didn't want to remove this code so that we build on from what we looked at last time. So let me ask someone. Let me see who followed that session. Who followed up that session and understood. We said that if you want to capture information from the user, which interface do you use if you have dynamic values or the parameters? If they are, you have we call them parameterized queries, meaning that the information is not hard-coded. Which interface is that? You can mute, say I'm this and this, then you tell us the answer. Which interface? If you have dynamic values, or you're capturing information from the user keyboard, which interface is that? You guys there? Anyone? Which interface did we say is that? Oh, none remembers. Okay. The interface is called prepared statement. Okay. Prepared statement is the one that allows you to capture information dynamically from the user keyboard. So we shall create that statement object. So we shall say statement prepared statement, then we create its object, but again it's highlighting red because it's not imported. Okay, so we shall have to come on top here and we say import java.sql.prepared statement. Okay, so now we can go ahead and use it. So of course PS is the object name. You can name it anything of the prepared statement, just like we are using statement. But remember, we said statement is used for start queries, if you have information that is hard coded. But if you have dynamic information, then you have to use prepared statement. So for the statement object, you create it using create statement of this, and the interface is statement. But for prepared statement, you use this interface prepared statement, which you first imported, then you put the object, then you use the connection object, and then you say prepare statement. Now if you look at these two, prepare statement takes in a string, which is a query. But if you look at its syntax or its signature, if you look at this, it is string SQL. So it takes in an SQL string as a parameter, which is different from create statement. For create statement, it does not take in any parameter. The parameter is passed when you're executing here. If I can comment out this, when you call the method execute update, that's when you pass the parameter. But the create statement method does not take in a parameter. But for prepare statement, for it takes in a string query. Okay, so meaning that we have to design our query that we need to carry out. So string, we can say query. In this case, we want to insert a student using data from user keyboard, or the user is the one who is going to be able to enter that information. What is the first name, what is the last name, what is the address. So in this case, we are not going to hard code. That's why we chose prepared statement, not statement, because statement is used for static values. Okay, so we say insert into students. That is our table, which we have here. Okay, it has ID, first name, last name, address, and age. But of course, ID is auto increment. So the information that we are going to be adding dynamically is first name, last name, address, and age. So we shall put those columns so that we are interested in first name, also last name, and then address, and then age. Then we insert values. What are the values? Here, if you want to add values manually, you would put them inside here. You say maybe Julia as the first name, then you say hope if Julia, please excuse me in case I don't write your last, I believe last name very well. This is this data, please. Kampala, and maybe age 18. So this is what you would do if you're inserting, if you're capturing information statically. You are decoding values. But if you're going to add these values, if the user is the one who is going to add these values, then you use placeholders for the parameter. Now this is you put a placeholder for first name, last name, address, and age. So the placeholder that we use in Java for parameters is the question, what you call the question mark. Okay, so you see I have put 4 because I expect 4 values: first name, last name, address, age. So this tells the Java compiler that here it's a placeholder. There is a value which is going to be placed here. That question mark says, okay, it's a placeholder for a specific parameter in a SQL query, which is first name, last name. I've put 4 because we expect 4 values. One will be for first name, another one for last name, another one for address, another one for age. Then after preparing this query, now of course here, this is why you put the query, because prepare statement expects a string which is an SQL query. Okay. Then after this, we can go ahead and capture these values from the user and then be able to substitute them or place them into the query. Now the class that helps you to get who has done Java here, which class enables us to get input or to capture input from the user? Anyone? Okay, we call it scanner class. Okay, so scanner class is the one which helps us to get input from the user. So we shall say it is under the scanner class is in util package. So we shall say Java, this is supposed to be small j, java.util.scanner. Okay, so there we shall have our scanner class. They are underlined because they are not in use, but once we use them, for example the scanner class, it will not be underlined. So how do you create you create the object for scanner class? So you say scanner, maybe the object is you call it input equals new scanner, then you say system dot in. So this will create an object for scanner class, and therefore you can use this object to capture input. So the first thing I need to tell the user is to enter their name, or if it is a teacher, to enter the student's name. So enter first name, can say enter student's first name. Okay. So now this will be very important, because now if the teacher will know, oh, this is a point I need to enter first name. So we can declare string first name. Okay, and you use the object which is the input to capture the value. So you say input dot next line, that is for a string. Can see it, even the data type is here. Okay, so next line will capture the first name, will help us to capture the first name from user. Yeah, so we can do the same for the rest of the parameters. So system.out.print, here I want first the user to enter, maybe enter student's last name. Okay, when you do that, you can say string last name equals input dot next line. Okay, then you terminate that. So I'm using next. No, you don't use next line is specifically for strings. If it is a boolean, if it is age, if it is an image, they change. Okay, so I will show that shortly for age, because age is not a string. You can say enter their address. Address is also a string, so shall use say string address equals input. Use the scanner object input dot next line again, because it is a what, a string. Lastly, based on what we have in our database, we have close this. Next we have the age as the last column, so we shall say system.out.println enter their age, or enter student's age. Okay, then you terminate. Now age is int, so you say int age equals input. Now you don't say next line, because next line is for string. You can go through them like this and you see what you have, but for int use next int. Okay, next int. If it is a boolean, there is next boolean. Quite many. You can always discover those functions on the scanner, which are from the scanner class. So now we have the four parameters from the user. The user will be able to input because of what we have written here. Input, the scanner object helps us to use these functions, next line, next ith, so that we can get the values from keyboard. But if it is use next line if it is a string, but next int if it is an integer. If it is a boolean, there is next boolean. There are quite many, depending on what data type you're dealing with. I think there is also next double etc. So at this point we have the information from the user: first name, last name, address, age. So remember, we also created our statement, which is prepared statement. I said prepare statement, and we have these placeholders. So now we need to make sure that here at first when we created the query, we said, okay, we are putting these placeholders to tell you that we shall have some information which will be substituted here. Therefore, since we have the information now, we need to use the object for prepared statement to substitute the values where you have the placeholders. So you use the object, and so you will say ps dot okay. You have different functions. They set string if it is a string. Okay, if you say set, okay, you see that there. Okay, just want to show you a couple of them. There is set dot set. If you want to set an array, if you want to set big binary string, set blob, which is for an image, set boolean if it is a boolean, set character string. Okay, quite many. Set date if you have date, and in case you're capturing date of birth from the from the user, now you use set date. Set double if your data type is double. But if you look at what we have, first name, last name, address, and age, the three of them are strings. The last one is age. So for first name, last name, and address, it will be set string, since we are dealing with a string. So you put what position it is. First of all, 1, I have first name. On position 1, I have first name. Now I want to change the variable name so that people don't cram. I don't want people to say first name because here you have first name. So let me use underscore. Maybe for address I can leave it like that, or I put underscore address, even this one, age. Now what you put here is the value. Okay, you're saying that set string position 1 is a string, and it's what? It's first name. Okay, now the first name that we've used here is the value that you're capturing from the keyboard here. String first name input that, not the next line. It is not this column name, but it is the value. You're saying the first parameter or placeholder that you have in SQL is for first name. You can see it: first name, last name, address, and age. Then next is also a string, which is last name. So it says set string, set string, Okay, 2 it's last name, because it's the second column that we in the way we've organized those columns. Next you say ps.set string, and then you say 3. What comes on the position 3? It's address. Then next you don't say set string, it is sent int, because the next one, the last one, which is age, which is in position 4, it's an integer, it's not a string, so we shall say sent int and then 4, which is age. So at this point, what we are doing here is we are substituting the placeholders with actual values here. Remember, these are placeholders. So the first placeholder is for first name, and therefore we are saying in that we are using the prepared statement object that you're going to set a string on the first placeholder, and it is the value of the first name. You're going to replace it with first name. Then the second placeholder, this one, it is also a string, so you set string to the placeholder second position is last name until you reach the last one, which is set int, because age is an integer. Then after this you can use execute to update, or use execute to make sure that we are able to execute our be able to execute our statement. Yeah, so we talked about these methods, so you know them. There is execute, there is execute update. So you see, execute does not take in a string. This one takes in a string, but we've already passed our string, so we don't need this. Okay, you can use that first one, or you can also use execute update. Okay, they will all, you can see we even talked about it, that execute, for example, update is used for data manipulation language DML, which is for inserting, when you're inserting, updating, or deleting, and does not take in any parameter, so you can do this. Okay, so, and they are saying that the return type is a is a string, so you can say int result. Okay, if it is 1, then it is success, it is a success, so you can say int result equals to 1, then we know that the user has been inserted successfully. If you hover over this, you see, if you hover over 1, you see returns either 1, the row count for SQL data manipulation language, 2, or 0 for SQL statements that return nothing. I hope you're seeing what I'm reading. It's here. This is the good thing with these IDs, is they try to explain the methods. If it is successful, they say 1, the row count for the DML statement. Now the DML statement that we are doing is we are inserting. So if we insert 1 row, it means it is successful. That's why I'm saying if result equals to 1, this we shall know that the execution or the insertion of that student is successful. If it is 0, it means that nothing has, it means it has returned nothing, meaning that even the row that happens when, for example, an error has happened and so the user has not been inserted. 0 rows have been inserted. But if it is 1, then we mean that the student has been inserted. So we shall print a statement that this last name, I'm trying to create a string to say this is underscore last name has been registered successfully. Okay, has been registered successfully. Then we terminate. Then else means success. If the result is not 1, it means student registration failed. Student registration has failed. Okay, then so at this point we are complete with our code for inserting a student. So we can say input it's cross to always cross the object for scanning, or the scanner class object. So the first thing was to prepare a statement where saying insert into students. We are going to insert first name, last name, address, and age. Then when it comes to values, we are pressing placeholders, meaning that we shall come and insert the values later on. Then we are saying that if you're using dynamic data, if you're going to capture information from keyboard, don't use the statement interface. Instead, you use prepared statement, because this is the one that helps you to run parameterized queries, meaning that the queries, the SQL queries you're creating, have parameters. So I've created the scanner class object because they use that object to capture information from the keyboard. So here I'm just writing a statement, just a printing telling the user please enter student's first name, and thereafter I declare a first name variable, which is a string, and then I use the object here, the scanner object, which I've called the input. You can call it anything, and then I use next line so that the user is able to enter first name. I'm using next line because it's a string. Last name is the same thing, it's a string. I'm using next line. Address is also a string. I'm using next line. But for age, it's an integer, and therefore I'm using next integer, which is the function from the scanner class. And of course, since we are using parameterized query, we are going to insert these values later. So that's why I'm use the same object for the prepared statement PS. Then you say set string at position 1. The first placeholder, this one, is for first name. So therefore I say I will replace it with the actual value from the user, the one which they are going to enter here. I say where there is the first placeholder, it is for first name, which is the actual value you've gotten from the keyboard. That same applies to last name, address, and then age. Age, of course, it is sent int, not string, because age is an integer. And therefore what I'm doing next is do ps.execute update, which will update in the database by putting this row or student details. And of course the return type for this execute update is integer, so that's why I'm storing the result as an integer, or declaring the result as an integer, because the return type for this function execute update is an integer. So if it is 1, it means that the row has been inserted in the database. So I will print a message that whatever first name I will enter and last name, we shall print that has been registered successfully. Else we say student registration has failed, and therefore then afterwards I close the input, which is the scanner class object. So in this case, our database or table, when we have one person, Simon Dung, therefore we are going to run our code and insert someone dynamically. So I've executed. Can I restore my console? Okay, restore. So you see when I run this, they are telling me to enter student's first name. Okay, so let me get some few names from here. Natukunda Selina. Okay, so I will put her first name as Selina. Okay, the next I put Natukunda as last name, Natukunda. Okay, then they're asking me for address. Let me try to expand this. So you see that now I'm trying to register this student dynamically, meaning that I'm capturing the information. The user is the one entering the information. Address is Kampala. Okay, for example, age maybe is 19. Okay, now when we press enter, this user is going to be registered in our database. So but if you refresh now, there's only Simon. So at this point, after entering 19, I'll press enter and see the message. They are saying Selina Natukunda has been registered successfully. We check our database and see. If you refresh, you can see Selina is there. Selina Natukunda, Kampala 19. So yeah, if you want to create another one, you can run again that, and so we can add another person who is Midula Sifa. Okay, so we shall say maybe first name is Sifa, Midula, address is maybe where, Masaka, then age maybe 20, and when we press enter, you see Sifa Midula has been registered successfully. If we come to our database and we refresh, we can see that Sifa Midula has been registered. Then first name, last name, address, and then age. Of course, last time we saw how to fetch these details, so they don't change. How to fetch does not change. Maybe I can just, for those people, we can fetch these people. So we said use the result set object, rs, okay, and then we say we have to prepare a statement. Okay, we can say string select, okay, we select query, and we say select all from students. Okay, and then we shall use, I think right now we can use the statement object, since we right now I'm going to use this statement object, this one, because the query that I'm running, which is select all from students, does not have dynamic parameters, so it's okay for me to use that. The hard-coded what? The statement object is used for static values. Then you run execute query, and the query we are passing is this. If you don't want, it's not a must for you to first declare. You can put exactly the query within. You get this, then remove this, and then you delete this. Remember, I'm trying to make sure that I return these users that I've registered. I have, registered. And maybe I can display list instead of putting it here. Once it is successful, that's when I display the list of the users who are registered. So I can say system.out. I'm doing it in a sense that whenever registration is successful, that's when I display now the updated list of students. Okay, so I can say updated list of students in PivoSoft Coding Academy. You do that, then we terminate. So this is just the printing. Now I come and put my statement here. So this is what I'm going to fetch. If you want, you can use functions. I'm taking it sorry, because I know some of you haven't even practiced how to write functions in Word. Then we iterate through. We say rs.next, and we saw this last time, so it shouldn't be something new to you. So we are capturing, what are we capturing? We are capturing first name, last name. So we can say string fname, then we say rs.get string. Okay, and we use first name, okay, which is the column name. In this case, you can use column name or use the indices. Then string error name equals rs.get string. The next last name is also a string, and the column name is last name. Okay, the next is address, so we shall say string address, then we say rs.get. We looked at this last week, so I'm sure you are very familiar with. So in this case, I'm trying to fetch information from database. So right now I'm getting the actual values from each row, the first name, last name, and address. Then next is integer, which is the age. Then I say rs.get int, okay, and the column name is called age. So at this point I can print these values. So I can say system.out.print line, and what am I going to print? I'm going to print f name, then I put plus is for concatenation. Concatenation is putting, if you have first name and last name and you want to display both names, you concatenate them. So that's what we call concatenation plus. I believe Douglas must have taught you that. And then I add address here, then lastly I put age, then I terminate. Okay, so okay, what I've done is that whenever we add a new student, we want to see what is the updated list. That's why I'm putting the, let me first close this out of the store. Okay, that's why what I'm doing is that after inserting a new student, remember we've seen that by using a prepared statement, and once we've inserted them by using execute update, if the execution is successful, what is this? If the execution is successful, I will print that whatever user I've inserted has been registered successfully. Then I fetch to display the updated list of students after what? After registering. That's basically what I've done. I want to display the updated list once I've registered the user successfully. So let's demo that. So I'll execute this and restore my console, and I'll pick another name here, which is Nionzima Brian. Okay, so I put first name as Brian. Okay, next Nionzima. Okay, as last name, address as Barara. Okay, age I can say 17. So now when I press enter, we shall have a message that Brian Nionzima has been registered successfully, and then we shall have the new list of students, because you see that after the execution is successful, after inserting a student, we are writing code that will help us to fetch students. That's why you're saying result set. Of course, we create the result set object, then say statement.execute query, select all from students, and then we are using while to iterate through the rows, and then we fetch each independent parameter, and then we display those values. Okay, so when we say enter, you can see Brian Nionzima has been registered successfully. Then we have this updated list of students in Microsoft Coding Academy. Whom do we have? Simon Dungu, Mukono 18, Serena Natukunda, Kampala 19, Sifa Midura Mbasaka 20, then Brian Nionzima, Barara 17. Of course, when you go to our database and refresh, you realize that those are the students that we have. Okay, hope that is clear. Okay, so next I'm just going to demo two things, and we bring this to the close. You will now build the code for updating and deleting. I think that's all. We've seen how to insert, we've seen how to query. Remember, this is we call them the CRUD operation: create, read, update, and delete. CRUD. That's what, if you do, some of you, let me write it here. It might be your first time to hear it. CRUD. Okay, it means create, read, update, and delete. Okay, so we've so far created. It's like insertion. You've created the record where we've inserted the new values using KDB. We've read, that is selecting data from database. Now we're going to look at how do we update values and how do we delete. Simple, as simple as that, and then that will be all. So please allow me comment out this up to this. Okay, so I've commented out that what I need, I think, is the scanner I will make sure that this goes above, because I need the scanner object. So but that one I don't still need it anymore. So we are going to see how do we update what do we have how do we update like these records, you know, how can we update their, you know, name, first name, last name, age. Okay, so we are going to write a query for updating. So since updating, we're going to also use dynamic information, meaning that we are capturing this information from the user. The user has to tell us which ID of the student, which student do they want to update by providing their ID, and then we ask them, you know, if they want to update last name, first name, etc. So we are going to still use the prepared statement, but before that we write a query for updating. So we shall write a string update query string, and we say how do we update. You guys know SQL. You say update, what are we updating? The students table. Then we set, what are we setting? We want to change, maybe assume we want to change maybe district, maybe this guy is district, we want to change their district, or age. Yeah, so you can say update set we are updating address equals so in this case I'm using this placeholder, meaning that the value of address will be captured from the user's keyboard. Okay, yeah, we'll capture this information for the user's address from the keyboard. Then set where ID equals, also it's a placeholder, because we want to make sure that the ID is also added by, or is provided by the user. Okay, so that's our query. We can write a prepared statement. Since we're using prepared statement because we have placeholders, we need to get information from the user. So in this case I can call it PST, that is my object name. Then we use the connection object, then we say prepare statement, and our string is update query. Okay, then I go ahead and ask you the user what is the new value of the address and what is the ID of the student that they want to replace. So you can say system.out.print line, and then you say enter student ID whose details are changing or are to be changed, whatever. This is just now English. And then we are going to get their ID, so we want the user to be able to enter their ID. So in this case I'm going to give you that that one for, you know, for the bank. Now in this case assume you want to, a user is, you're the teller, now you're trying to update someone's account, account, maybe they've deposited money through the teller, so you're using their system. Now you're the teller sitting before your computer trying to update this customer who has brought cash before you, and you want to update the system. Now what you need to what they need to provide you is the account number. So if the one for the bank, in this case, if you want to update, assume you want to update their details of first name. They are saying, oh, you wrote wrongly, my first name is not Medula, it is something else, or I'm depositing money and this is my account number. So in this case of student ID, in the bank context, we will say enter customer bank account number, because that's what you will use to uniquely identify a customer in your database. So we shall say int student ID. Since it is an ID, we are still using the scanner class input, then dot next int. Okay, now we are going to update the address, so we shall say system.out.print line, and then say enter the new address for the student. Okay, then we say address is a string, so we shall have to say string address equals input dot next line, since it is a string, next line. Okay. So now we have the two values, because remember the query says set address equals whatever value you're going to press, where id equals the value that we're going to press. So remember how we achieved that when we were inserting, use ps object. In this case we are using pst, that is our object name dot set. So the first one that is a string is the address. Address is the one that is coming first, the first placeholder. So we can say the first one is address, and then we say pst dot set int, because the second one, the second placeholder in our query is an id, which is an integer. That's why I'm using set int, and it is student what id that we are going to capture from the user. Then next is int res, meaning result, and then we say pst dot execute update, which will return an int. So if we can say res, if it is equal to 1, then we mean that the row we have changed one row. System dot out dot print line. Okay, you can say student details have been updated successfully. Okay, then else we can say system dot out dot print line system is unable to update student details. Then we terminate. Here it is print line. Okay, so at this point we've written our algorithm for updating. One, we are writing our query. We are going to update table students, then we are going to change their address, which is this, then where id is that. Then we say prepared statement, we create the object, then we use the connection object, we use the function prepare statement, then we put our update query. Then we ask the user to enter his student's id, then we ask them for the new address. Then here we are replacing these placeholders. The first one is address, that's why set string 1 address. The next one is the id, which is 2, then the variable, which is student id, and then we execute. Once we execute, we expect one row to be affected, so we say student details have been updated successfully if the execution is successful. Else we say the system is unable to update student details. So okay, so we will run this query, and I first restore my console, and they are telling me enter student id whose details are changing. So the id, maybe I'm changing the Medura C5. I want to change her address. Maybe it is not Masaka, maybe it is Iganga. So her id is 3. Okay, so when we come here and we put 3, they ask me no, we believe we needed first capture id. It has executed automatically, and this is wrong. Let me see, must have even repressed. You can see it has deleted her address. That should not happen. We should have her address first. Let's execute it again, and we say okay, 3. Let me change. Something is happening with it's executing automatically minus capturing the address. Let me try next this, and when you use next does not insert a new line. So if we do this and I put 3, okay, so now you can see it asks for the for the address. So next line presses like it goes so there's what we call next or next line. Now next does not press a new line. Now what was happening with next line is because it was inserting a new line as the new value of the address, but next will not insert a new line, so that's a difference. So in this case we can say iganga, okay, and then we see the message student details have been updated successfully. Now if we check Medura's district, we should be able to see iganga, and as you can see it, okay. I can also change, maybe for Simon it's not Mukono, maybe it is Ginger, so I can come and say execute this, and it's 1, and the new address for Simon is Ginger. So it says student details have been updated successfully. If we can come and check, we see Simon has his new district as Ginger. You can also change, of course, other details. Basically, maybe a first name, etc. All you need to change is the query. So we can maybe change their age. I can say and age equals whatever placeholder, okay, and age equals that. So therefore in this case we are going to change their address and maybe age, so which means I need to get their age as well. So I can, anyway, let me say system.out.print line enter the student's correct age, okay. Then age is an int, so I will say age equals input dot next int, okay. Then I terminate. So meaning that I'm going to also get what? Age. So now when you look at the arrangement of our update, it's address first, then age. So this one is no longer number 2, it's number 3, because it's placeholder number 3. This is 1, 2, 3. ID is the third one. The second one is now age. So meaning that here I'll put age, then I say pst.set int, now which is 3, and it is student ID, okay. So what I've done is I've introduced, I don't want to only update address, I also update age, where ID is whatever value of ID. So in this case I'm setting address, I'm setting age, and I'm also setting the student ID. No, I'm using the student ID to update these two, address and age. So I execute the code, I restore my console, and the student ID in this case I want to update, maybe is the 4th one, which is Brian, okay, and his ID is 4. Ask me for his correct age, maybe 22, okay. They ask me his new address. Brian's address is currently in Mbarara, so we can say Gudu, okay, Gudu district. Okay, when we enter, now they show an exception, data truncation, incorrect double value Guru. Let me see, what do we start with? This address. Let me see what is happening. So the first one is address, then next one is age, which is 2, address is 3. Let me see, truncated incorrect double value Guru. I think we could have written the query wrong. Do we need to have is it and, or is it supposed to be and or comma? I think that's, I believe this is supposed to be that, if I'm not mistaken, because you're setting update students, then Yeah, I believe it's supposed to be a comma. I hope I've not. Okay, let's try that and see. So that's good. The importance of writing exception handling of including. You're able to get the issue. So the issue comes from the query, I believe, from using and instead of a comma. Let's see. We have using Brian, age is 22, new address is Guru. Okay, so now we see student details have been updated successfully. So if we check Brian, the database, we shall see Guru is now, his address is Guru and age is district. So when you're updating a number of parameters, it's just comma, not and. So that's basically it on how to delete to update records in the database. Okay, finally, let's look at how to delete. How do we delete records? How do we delete records? This is the concept is the same. Really, the concept is the same. Any questions so far? Let me see if there are any questions so far. Yes, Vincent. Vincent, I see your hand raised up. Please, you can go ahead and ask if you have any question. Maybe that hand was raised as a mistake, I believe. So now we finished updating. Yes, Doreen, please ask.
Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon.
Previously, before this part of updating, you were using next line for the strings, and it was working. But then on this part, you just said next, and you said the other next line was for another line, and on the previous parts, it was working. I didn't get that correctly.
It's because of int. When you see, if you look at what we are doing first, it was the strings were coming first. Next line, then lastly integer. If you put this integer first and then you use next line, some of the string values won't be captured. So here I started with int next int, and so when I could press enter, it would just capture the address as an empty string. So that's why I had to switch to next, because for next it will not insert a value as it will not set an empty string as the value. So that's the difference. But if you want even this side, you can use next. You simply must use next line. The difference is that next line, it presses a new what? An empty space, or like a string, and then proceeds to the next. But if you don't want to do that, you can just use next. Next, and it will make sure that it doesn't insert any empty string. Yeah, so that's the difference. You get that right, Doreen? Okay, so let's do one for deleting, and that will be the end of today's session. I believe now you can build a very dynamic console application in Java at this point. Of course, I've not introduced functions. Of course, you did functions, so I would want to, instead of even deleting this work, I would want to punch it into, I modularize it into functions, so that I don't have to comment out. Meaning with functions, I would be calling a given method when I need it. So for example, actually let me do that. Let me see if I can do that. I'm going to modularize this. You guys now have the experience of doing this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to modularize this code. So please follow along. You guys are now experts. So the first thing, I'll write a method that returns this connection object. Okay, so what I will do, I'll come and write a function. Can even say private. It returns the connection object. No, I don't want to use the other connection. So establish okay, I can call it set connection. I don't want longer set connection. I know some of you are going to get lost here, but I hope you don't get lost, I pray. So now it's good to write this in exception using to make sure you catch exceptions. So we shall say ex throw ex. Okay, the concept remains the same. So okay, let me first return my connection object, return connection object. So after that, this one is okay. I can use the throw add. Okay, throws exception. So I don't want any warnings. Is never used. Okay, no, it's okay, we shall use it. So now I've created a function that will help me to return the connection object. So I will reuse this method to create what? To create the connection. So now where we can even write, now this is a point where I'm creating this table. Now I'm modularizing the code. Even I can print this statement after the connection, but it's not a must. This one was demo, just to make sure I created demo for you guys. Now here I can see I am creating a table. Here I'm creating a what? A table. And I'm using the connection object. Now it's complaining because the connection object is not here. So what do? I get this one and I create a function for creating a table. So I say private void create table. Then maybe the parameter is table name. Some of you are going to get lost, but I pray you don't. I pray you don't. You have the experience, guys. So I put this. Okay. So this one, it will help me to create the table name. But since we are using parameterized queries, because the table is now going to be a parameter, so I don't need to use a statement because it's for static. First of all, let me first get the connection object, which is con. So I'm going to use this method that we created, because the one which gets which establishes the connection. So I will say this dot set connection, and I have the connection object. Okay. Okay, we just need to throw an exception to handle that. Okay, so after that, I am saying that we need to use prepared statement here, because the table will be dynamically it's a parameter. So prepared statement, I should have done this anyway. We are almost done. For delete it's not a big deal. Then we say prepare statement. Now I'm showing you how you write your proper code when you're building that ATM application. Then in this case, I'm going to, this is my query, so I want it to be dynamic. So I will say it's a string query equals this. Okay, but this one I want it to be a placeholder. Then I terminate. Yes. Then here I put my string, which is the query. Okay, then I have to replace this, so I'll say statement dot set string. Okay, then it's 1, then it's a table name. Okay, so I'm creating the table successfully, dynamically. Then we shall execute update. Okay, then I can remember after creating it, you can say int result equals, then if the result is 1, if result equals to 1, I will say, now instead of the database, I will hard code the table here, plus created successfully. Else I say system dot this, then I say table plus has not been created, terminate, then I terminate here, supposed to be print line. So now I've created a dynamic function, and a function that will take in the table name and then it uses the connection object. And remember, the connection object, now we are using this one, which from this function. So every time we want to set up the connection, we use this. We use that. We can make sure you always close it. It's good to always close the connection so that you establish it when you want. Okay, so I'm creating, no, this is a database, right? You're creating what? Database, not table. So there's a time when we are also creating a table here. So I will modularize the function. I also create for the same. So I will duplicate my code. I hope some people have already gotten lost, but I hope you are not getting lost. So I say create a database. So in this case, we are creating database. So here I call it DB name, meaning that we are creating what? Database name. Then here I put the name. I put the DB name, right? So because here basically we are creating database. So I'm changing it. This function will be used in creating whatever database you want. So I'm trying to modularize my code and make sure that you code the function when you want it. So we created one for setting the connection. This one is for creating database. This one is for creating table. So for creating table, now this will be, you have to pass in the query, because we don't know what kind of table we want to create. So this will remove this. And since we don't have dynamic queries when creating a table, we shall use the statement. We shall use the statement interface. So create statement, and the create statement does not take in. So even here we shall remove this, and then we use execute. But the execute statement must take in the table query. Okay. Table query. If you look at it returns a boolean. Okay, this returns a boolean. So say boolean result. So if the result is true, then the table has been created successfully. In this case, since we shall be passing an entire query, not the table name. So here we shall say table created successfully. Then here we shall say table has not been created. So I've also created a method that can help us in creating any other table we want. So anytime we need to create a table, we just call this method. Anytime we need to create a database, we just call this method. And you just pass in the database name and you create that database. If you need to create a table, you say that table query, and it will create that table. So now this connection, if you look at this connection here, we can always connect to a specific database. Okay, we can create this set connection. In this case, we are using hard coding our table, but if you want, you can set the database name that you want to connect to. Yeah, simple. Things are very simple, my people. Okay, then I can modularize that. If you want, you can also modularize all these. I may not go into details, but I've just shown you an example on how you need to do that, so that you modularize. You can create classes. You write these functions. You can code that function maybe like DB setup. I can create, instead of putting it in the student, I create a class called DB what setup. Can't I do that? Are people lost? I believe not. So I'll create a class called DB setup. DB. I can call it DB connection. No, I don't need this. So I finish. I don't need the static at the main method. So now this class will be responsible specifically for handling the connection, these methods that I've created. So I will remove these. Okay, I'll remove these methods and I then put them inside here. Okay, here, see this? Yeah, this is nice. Then we have to create to make them public so that we can access them in our class called student. Okay, so yeah, so we have, meaning that this DB connection helps us to set up connection and also provides us with other methods like create database, create table, because these are parameters. We can create any database since you're passing parameters. Now if I come inside here, I can come here and create the connection objects and say connection object, which is con equals, this case we are using, okay, equals, now I use DB connection. Now the DB connection that we have here, it's, these methods are not static. These methods are not static. If you want to access them, oh geez, my idea is closed, but good enough must have okay, Eclipse, just open this. Okay guys, follow up. This is whatever I'm doing, guys, it's nice, and I would want to see you organize your code like this. Okay, let the ID reopen. Sorry about that. Okay, let it come. So hope you guys are not lost. In case you're lost, don't lose hope. You follow the video, you ask me in time, and you understand. I don't like people who run away because they've not understood. So running away is the solution. No, so please, you guys normally log in with your full proper names. Now I don't know HJD, so that I keep track of who has attended. Some of you run away from problems and you think, where is my ID? Why is taking it? Why is it taking time? Okay, it's still opening. It's here. Please come on. Yes. Okay, you guys can see my ID again. Let me first close some of these. I think, yeah. So now I'm saying that if you want to access these methods from the external class that we've created, okay, you either, let me show you two ways. Okay, let's close this. So if you want to access this, oh, I thought it had not saved. Okay, these methods are here, all of them. Now I need to, I think I need to enable autosave. Now if I want to use the DB connection, which for example sets up our database here, like it has set connection, I have to instantiate it. Okay, I have to say DB connection, okay, con, okay, then equals no, this is DB, okay, equals new DB connection. Okay, then you do that. You access them through an object. Then I create the object, connection object, which is con. I say db dot. Now you see I have access to the methods. There is this set connection and then these ones that we created. The first one is create database, create table. So in this case I can say this. So in this case I'll be having the database connection. But if you don't want to do this, you can make this, like I can make this one static. Okay, can make the function static. When I make it static, now I will access this directly through the class name. I will say db connection that, you see, now I have access. If I go to this, it goes straight to that. But if I remove this, then the other one will show an error because it's not static. That's why it's showing an error. So if you make it static, you don't have to access it through an object, because it means that the function brings the entire class, not an object. So yeah, so now you see we have the that's basically even what's wrong now. Okay, cannot make a static from cannot make a static reference to a non-static. But I thought we've, oh yeah, this is DB connection, right? And when you look at this, wait, what's the issue now? Connection, thought we had addressed that. Change set connection to static, but it's already static. Okay, if you do this, it's already static. Yeah, have static unless it's not saved. And yeah, so you can see we are good. I had not saved. So now that's why you see, like, where we where you see they are saying driver manager dot get connection. Driver manager is here. What comes to your mind? That if these guys are using this package java.sql.driver manage, this driver manager get connection, meaning that this method is static because you're accessing it directly on the interface or the class. But here, that's what we are doing. DB connection, which is my class that I've created here, and I'm getting get set connection, which is this. I'm not creating the object first. So that's the purpose of and still our code will work. So assume the rest you can modularize. That's so meaning that this connection specifically helps you to connect to the database. If you want, you can actually pass in the database name here. Pass in the database name. So for every connection, I say string DB name. Which database do you want to connect to? So that you don't you pass it as a parameter, and then you come here and you had code the value, you pass it, you do this. Meaning that this side it will ask. So this, okay, we can set it as we can set a default value, so that in case someone doesn't pass, then they take the default database as academy. I think it was academy DB, meaning that it's an optional value. What's the value? What's the problem now? Okay, am I missing out something? Should be, I don't know, it shouldn't be this. I'm trying to figure out why it's not accepting my default value. Am I missing out something? Okay, let me see. What could be this bug? Is it hard? So I'm trying to see if we can pass a default value for the DB, because that would help us not to make it mandatory. In case someone does not pass it, then we are able to use I believe we are able to pass parameterized values in Java. Yeah, anyway, what we can do is ignore this. Okay, there's another way we can set it. So if we don't, we can set our default DB here, and we say there are many ways of killing a rat. So I can set my default DB. Let me see. Oh yeah, we need to give it a string here. So this is the default DB. Okay, so what we can do is that in case it's not supplied, we can write constant db equals db name then we set default. This should be a string as well, default db, or we say this dot if then db name else that. So db name is a parameter. Okay, so we can say if it is not equal to null, or I think there is string dot is you can say db name dot is empty. You can use is empty or blank to check if the value is empty. So trying to say that in case db is not null or is not empty, then we want to be able to use this value. Okay, so what we can say, we can make this static so that the value is accessible in a class. Guys, I hope you some of you could have gotten lost, but don't worry. Saying that what now values, can we prefix this? No, anyway, that's okay. That's just a warning. So what I'm saying is that in case the db now is not equal to, if it is not equal to null, here I need to make sure it's not empty. If it is not empty, then we shall take this, else we shall take this one as the default as the default value. So that's why the best way would have been to pass I think Java does not support default parameters. I think that's why it is refusing. But if you're using other programming languages, you can be able to set what? You can be able to set default values. But Java does not accept default values, unfortunately. So there you can use other, other tricks you can. If you want, for example, to use the default database, I use an empty string here. Okay, I use an empty string. What are the arguments that we have? We have a string. Okay, but we can set so set connection now, it's static, meaning that we don't need to use this, it belongs to the entire class when you say that. Or use the class name, which is db connection. I hope Douglas took you through this dot set name. Okay. Okay, I think the best way is not to pass, to make it static, because if you make it static, then here you cannot create you cannot call a static method within a method that is non-static, unless we decide to also make this static, a static void that, and yeah, db connection dot set connection. Yeah, so now we have that, so it works well. Then also this, we can make it static. If you do this, and then we pass an empty string. When you pass an empty string, it means that the default one will be used. Yeah, meaning that you don't want to pass the parameter, so it's optional. Or you can pass null. Yeah, you make it optional. So in this case, we've configured that so that this side, if I want the option, if I want a specific database that I want to connect to, it will be this. Okay, now the error goes. But if I say this empty string, it will use the default database, which is this one that we've configured in our class. Are you still there? some people have gotten lost. I'm sorry if you've gotten lost, but yeah. So let's try to now create one that so at least we know that we are using a reusable. That's what I want you to approach your work, that we have created another class called DB connection, and we've used set connection. Now this set connection is from the other class, so we can now delete. Let's try to do one for deleting. I will do this. I'm going to write it very quickly, swiftly, so that we can finish. So string delete query equals delete from students where id equals the value that we are going to pass. Okay, that is our query. Then we use prepared statement. Prepared statement ps equals connection object, then dot prepare statement, and our query is delete query. Now we need to ask the user to enter the ID of the student that's going to be deleted. So we shall say system.out.print line. So we're asking for the ID, enter ID of the student, enter ID for the student. Okay, enter ID of the student. Now we initialize ID, which is, we have the input object, then not next int, then we terminate. So we have now the ID of the student that we're going to delete. Now we use the ps.setInt so that we set the ID that we are going to delete, okay, which is this one. It's the first one, it's the only one we have, so 1, then the ID. So then we can execute int is deleted, or you can say result, whatever, it's not a must. You can say ps.execute update, okay. Then we can say if result equals to 1, what has happened? We say that system.out dot print line, you say student student has been deleted successfully. Actually we can successfully, and then we terminate. So you can say student whose ID is, then we concatenate the ID. We say ID, so we will say student whose ID is whatever ID you would enter has been deleted successfully. Else shall say system.out.print line, then we say student details. Okay, you can say student has not been deleted. Student has not been deleted. So this is basically what we've been doing. And the algorithm is done. What we are doing first is that we are passing, we are creating our query delete from students where ID is the ID we're going to specify. Then we create the prepared statement object ps, then we pass our query, which is this. Then we tell the user to enter the ID of the student. Of course we use next int. Then here we set on the, in our query we replace this placeholder, the ID, with the actual value which the user is going to enter. Then we call the method execute update, and once it returns 1, it means the student has been successfully deleted, else student has not been deleted. Okay, so when you execute this, we should be able to see the student who's going to be deleted. In this case we have who, we can remove number 1, okay, Simon. So we can say we run, I restore my console. Okay, so enter the ID. So when I press 1 and I enter, oh, well, the problem, did we create sort of foreign keys cannot update or delete a parent row? Foreign key constraint phase. Oh, we are using a wrong table, right? wrong DB. It's supposed to be Academy DB here, because the Coding Academy is being referenced, has foreign keys. If a table has ID that is already referenced, then you can't delete. But for our table, for our DB, which is what I think it's called Academy DB, yeah, then we should be able to delete, because that's the only table that we have. Its ID is not being referenced in other tables, so that's why the other one, whereas we had used the different what table. So if you execute again, before we delete, let's first confirm that Simon is still there. Yeah, if I refresh, he's still there. If I put 1, student whose ID is 1 has been deleted successfully. If we check our database and we refresh, Simon is gone, it's not there. Okay, I can delete the next one, which is 4, Brian. So if I re-execute and I put 4, then I enter, then it says student whose ID is 4 has been deleted successfully. When I refresh, Brian is gone. Yeah, guys, we've come to the conclusion of JDBC. I invite questions. If there are any. If there are any questions, please ask. Vincent, your hand has been up. I don't know if it is by mistake. Yes, Katumba James. Yes, James, I see your hand raised up. Please pick up. You're on mute. In case you're speaking, please unmute. It was complicated today. It was not complicated, Majesty. I can tell you these things will be very easy for you if you practice. Now, if you come into this session minus practicing the rest, that's why you say they are hard. Who wants to speak?
Good afternoon, sir.
Yes, James.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Thank you for such a wonderful presentation. Now, so grateful for that. But last presentation, as I told you, you were too speedy, so I couldn't get it well. So I don't know whether you can fix some time and we go through that session. Then so that we can connect it with this one, so that we can have an something constructive. Because now here I've understood everything, but the other one I didn't understand it well. So now it seems this one is not important to me if I don't know the other one well. So
okay, but the session is on YouTube. Did you try to follow? It's there on YouTube. The recording was uploaded.
I tried, but I didn't get it well. That's the fact. I tried to follow up, but I didn't get it well. Yeah, that is it. So, but this one, everything's
5 minutes. 5
is okay.
Minutes and be done. Okay, I will see how to handle that, James. I will see what to do.
Okay.
Okay, any more questions before we conclude our session? Let's get through this. If you have a question, please unmute and ask.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, my question. Okay, thank you for the session. I think I had some problem of understanding, but I think I can pass through the videos. But my question was like, these codes, did they work only for database or for all when you want to put a dynamic word? when you want to create a dynamic application, do they work for all or only for databases?
I don't know if I've gotten your question
I
very
think we are
well.
getting.
Of course, if you connect to a database, that means the application it's not necessarily dynamic, but because you're storing information in, by storing information in the database does not necessarily mean that it's dynamic. What makes a program dynamic is make sure that whenever a user interacts with it, then it's the application allows the user to enter data and interact with the application on different levels. So when you say dynamic, when I talk about dynamic, it means that the user is able to enter information, and that information is able to be captured in the database. So, and that's what basically what we've looked at in this session. Have you understood that, Legun? Okay. Any more questions? Any suggestions? Anything?
Yes,
Thank you, sir, for the presentation.
All
It
right.
was wonderful.
All right, guys. I will upload this on YouTube so that you guys can follow up. Please, the bank application will be a good one for you guys to test and build an ATM, an application that simulates an ATM. So please practice this.
Okay, sir. So what I'm asking also shortly as we're getting off.
Yes.
I can use the same whatever using the Java as JavaScript Java. I mean, is it a Visual Studio? Then I use the SQL.
Yes, you can. You can use Visual Studio Code if you want, but if you want to use SQL database, then you have to change the driver. Here,
Okay.
you will have to change the driver and use the appropriate way. This is specifically from how the driver for MySQL. So you will have to look for the proper way for connecting to MySQL database, for SQL database, Microsoft Server SQL database. Yeah.
Okay, sir. All right. Thank you.
All right. All right, guys. Please practice these things. Next week we shall have presentations for the ATM simulating application.
Okay, sir.